Growing up in 6 different countries and 5 different international schools, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, have become ingrained in my education and worldview. Released in 2015, all 193 nations unanimously adopted the goals, seeking to achieve sustainability, meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising that of future generations. I was 7 years old when the goals were introduced. For me, I was motivated by the united proactivity of the goals, a blueprint to solving our most pressing global issues. From eradicating poverty, ensuring quality education, or combating climate change, the goals inspired my generation. We became hopeful for a future unrecognizable to the tabloid headings of how the world is going to end through climate disaster, global famine, or nuclear war. Yet now, a decade later, our prospects seem bleak. No wonder my generation is hampered by anxiety. Over 10,000 young respondents in an international survey convey that 84% worry about climate change, 3/4 are fearful of the future, and 83% attribute this to a failure of the previous generations. What was once an assuring view of the pioneering SDGs is now turning into one of betrayal. A betrayal to meet the goals we set out to achieve, and ultimately, a betrayal to future generations. And no, my generation is certainly not ignorant, and said social media has enabled us to become more connected than all before us. And while our cynicism is definitely a step past naivety, it is simply not sufficient for enacting any meaningful change. We simply do not take the privileged opportunities for participation young people are given across this world. I, for instance, did not vote in the last EU election, despite being over 16. Perhaps it is because I feel indifferent with the current political climate, or perhaps because a vote feels like a mere drop in the bucket. And I'm not alone in this. A decreasing 36% of eligible voters below the age of 25 voted in the last EU election, and similar statistics can be seen in previous years and in national elections too. And now, the most recent UN stocktaking of the goals' progress has revealed that half of the goals are moving too slowly to meet the 2030 deadline, and critically, over 1/4 are in reverse. Now, are we supposed to be truly alarmed by these statistics, or is this merely the status quo that we're supposed to accept? Yes, I can see that recent crises such as COVID-19 or the onset of global conflicts in Ukraine or Gaza have inhibited our progress. However, I believe that we should care, and I think the underlying cause of our inability to meet the goals can be attributed to the free rider problem. Now, to explore this, I would like everyone here to consider this classic prisoner's dilemma applied to Goal 13, climate action. In the future, climate change can be expected to cause over 250,000 deaths per year from malnutrition, malaria, and heat stress. So why isn't it of the utmost priority for most governments? Well, as we can see, if alone country A addresses climate change without country B following suit, it will strain their economy and jeopardize their future growth. Clearly an unconvincing choice. Notably, the costs of these measures are also only incurred on the nation that's implementing them, country A in this case. Now, this simple table gets extremely complex when considering that every single nation in the world faces this exact same dilemma amongst every other nation. By and large, most of the SDGs are global public goods, being both non-rival and non-excludable. This can create free-riding nations that reap the benefits of other countries' green policies, while ostensibly justifying underinvestment in the hopes that others take up their individual responsibility. It is both ironic and disheartening that a nation's actions toward climate change and toward the SDGs can reinforce free-riding nations to focus on their own domestic priorities and capitalize on their economic advantage. Therefore, it is clear that the only tenable solution is global cooperation, where all countries contribute toward the SDGs. Now, under international law, there are no existing means by which we can legally address the free rider problem. Rich, powerful nations have no incentive to threaten their position, while poor nations have little influence in challenging the status quo. For example, the US did not ratify the Kyoto Protocol, citing unfairness to industrialized nations. And now with the Paris Agreement, which seeks to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius within pre-industrial levels, President Trump has again announced his intention to withdraw. His executive order stating that such agreements, quote, unfairly burden the United States, is precisely the issue with voluntary arrangements. The SDGs are truly global goals, and they will require collective responsibility and action. Now, with this in mind, how can we address the free rider problem? To answer this, I would like you all to consider the SDGs wedding cake model, developed by the Stockholm Resilience Center. The model shows how our economies and societies, often our main priorities, are reliant upon the biosphere. Therefore, we must move beyond our current sectoral approach and address the ecological goals that underpin our future prospects for success. These 4 goals, clean water and sanitation, climate action, life below water, and life on land, must be our main priorities, as they are fundamentally affected by the free rider problem as they pertain to our environment. Now, it is not my role here today to appraise different solutions or recommend a foolproof plan to solving these 4 goals, as currently there is none. But what I can say is that this problem will very quickly become our prerogative. I was introduced to the goals when I was still in elementary school, but the 2030 deadline will pass once I've left university. Now, my generation will no longer be observing these issues from afar or criticizing global leaders for their lack of action and initiative. Instead, we truly need to take control of our future and move past cynicism. Yes, we may not be able to achieve all the goals that the 193 nations agreed upon in 2015. But are these really goals that we can abandon once the deadline passes? Thank you.